The size was not something that I had in my head. It was much bigger than I thought it was. And if someone tells me 40 kilometers square, I don't know what that is in my head. And I was shocked at how close the farmhouses were. So many of the barracks are collapsed. The gas chambers are all blown up. And so you walk around with the emptiness of the physical space and you fill it up with the sounds of the people you've learned about. So it's very eerie. I'm sure that I was frightened, both by human capacity, what humans can do to one another, but also for what humans can take. And then what they can tell us, and how little of what they experience they can actually tell us. So I know that I was shaken. And then you leave the place and you resort to trying not to be shaken anymore.
One of the most frequent misconceptions that the general public makes is an inability to distinguish between what constituted a killing center and what constituted a concentration camp, as well as what the purposes of the camps were. A killing center is a facility that is set up exclusively or primarily for the industrial or assembly-style mass murder of human beings, and out of which those who are not gassed or killed or shot upon arrival are selected out in order to support this so-called industry or process of mass murder. Jews were a minority in the concentration camps, but more than half of the Jews who were killed during the Holocaust were killed in killing centers.
Auschwitz comes to mind more than the other killing centers, I think, because the scale of what went on there. The other killing centers certainly killed large numbers of people in their own right, but the numbers at Auschwitz outstripped most of those. I think in total the estimates are somewhere between 1 and 1.2 million people total killed at Auschwitz. But perhaps more important for perceptions after the war is that there was something left at Auschwitz. At many of the other killing centers, the Nazis were successful at bulldozing these places, wiping them from the face of the earth, and covering up the evidence of what went on there. Auschwitz was captured intact, and still today there's a lot there to see. You can actually get a feel for what the place was like. Also, Auschwitz was not a strict killing center per se. It also had a significant forced labor component. At its peak, there were something like 200,000 prisoners working at Auschwitz. And there were many there when the Soviets liberated the place in January of '45. There were many more who were marched off but ultimately survived. So there were many witnesses.
We got to a camp where they shaved us, hair, genitals and everything else. Took everything away from us. And they gave us some kind of cotton uniform, which was a concentration camp uniform. And they sent us to a camp which was Camp D. And the billowing smoke you saw all the time. And it became so pessimistic about it. As, you start to wonder, what are you doing, what you're doing? He says, is there any hope? And you spoke to those old-timers which were maybe there a week or two, or just 2 hours before you came. But they already consider themselves experts. So they says, you see those chimneys? This way you wind up. And it's amazed me, you took it nonchalantly. As a matter of fact, it seems like a relief. Because it was enough already. It was enough. And it was no big deal. It's no big deal. It's only changed the scenery, but didn't change the suffering.
When I visit Birkenau, I always walk down the center and I walk down the railroad tracks. And I imagine what it's like to arrive on the ramp and what it's like to undergo this selection. And what it's like to leave the train when you thought that nothing could have been worse than the train. and to then see a very different experience. And I tried to picture in my mind what it was like to be then, and also to hear the sounds and the anguish of then, knowing that I can only imagine part of it, and part of it will always elude me. And I always walk around there sort of in a subdued and a very quiet way, and let the silence speak to me, and heed that silence as well.
As for Auschwitz, everyone tends to think that he or she knows everything about it, and it was likewise in my case, but I was wrong. Only when I started to get ready for the position of a guide and then study the literature and go around here and see this, when I understood a bit, because you can not understand Auschwitz. There are hundreds of books written about it, trying to explain, but it's not possible, I don't think. All we can do is to think about it, to analyze it, and possibly to take a lesson out of it. Auschwitz is a good example of what may happen when there are people full of hatred, even crazy, but those people then are supported by thousands or millions of others who just will follow and back them up. There are still others who are indifferent to what is going on, saying that this is not us, it is them. So this is the main thing about Auschwitz. This is what I think about it.
If you come here to this place without any knowledge of what happened here, it is very difficult to comprehend. You see around the grass growing, the trees, the vegetation, the pond where the ashes were thrown from the crematorium number 4 and 5. And now in the summer it's full of frogs. It's quiet, it's very mundane, and it's in a sense pretty. However, we have the ashes of Jews, but also Poles, Gypsies, a lot of Soviet prisoners of war. For each of those groups, if we take them separately, this is their biggest cemetery. This place is a universal symbol of all the evil that happened in the world. It is also a place that you can see the meaning 60 years after the event.
I'm not sure any survivor can describe Auschwitz to you. How does one describe the walking into Auschwitz? The smell, and someone pointing out to you that those are gas chambers that your parents went up and smoked. How do I describe fear? How do I describe hunger? I think hunger is when the pit of your stomach hurts when you would sell your soul for a potato or a slice of bread. How does one describe the knowing that Dr. Mengele will be there for his selections every single day, and mostly death in the gas chambers? There's no way to describe your first coming to Auschwitz.